Gotta admit, that generic music ain't too bad.
No, I like it.
All right. Might have to keep that around a little bit longer. Well, hello, fans, and welcome to another episode of High and Tight. Coming to you live on our social platforms via StreamYard. I'm John Nolan, the Prep Baseball Virginia DC Northern Virginia Scouting Director. Joining me this evening is the Virginia DC Assistant Scouting Director, Jordan Jones. Jason Burton is a bit under the weather. Hopefully he'll have rebounded by the time we get out to games tomorrow or Tuesday so that he can go see games. I'm honestly not sure, Jordan, if I want him to rebound so that he can go see games or so that he keeps his sanity. Which one do you think is more important?
I think it's important that he gets back. He plays a big part in us, so I'd love to have him back nice and healthy so I can mess with him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, the crash diet he's on right now is absolutely a great one. So if you're trying to lose some weight real quick, catch the flu. That's apparently the way to drop 10 or 12 pounds in 3 days. So if you do see him, I might stand away like 6 or 8 feet this week and flip him some Pepto or something. So hopefully Jason will be feeling a little better, be back with us later. So on tonight's episode, we are here to discuss quickly some standouts we saw from this week's action. There wasn't much of it. Mother Nature threw up a couple middle fingers at high school baseball in Virginia this week. So one note though, Mother Nature, that was your week. Please don't do this again until the season's over. So at least that's from me. So we will talk about a couple players who stood out at the few things that we got to see. We'll discuss our Power 25, which has been fully revealed on the website this week. We capped it off by dropping number 1 and number 2 on Friday, as well as our preseason All-State teams and some ideas and thoughts on what we think we are going to get to see out of that. Plus, we'll also start looking ahead to rankings updates that we have coming this week, as well as the high school season, which for private schools started late part of last week. And then for public schools, all starts tomorrow, March 11th. So let's go ahead and spin into the high school season here. Let's talk about that Power 25. We've been slow rolling it over the last 2 weeks. It's all out. We'll probably let it breathe for the next 2 weeks here while we get some games in, but then eventually we'll update it every single Monday morning. It's a combined rankings of all public and private schools in Virginia and DC. In the number 1 spot was St. John's College in DC. Jordan, question I have for you. Is there a team that you think could push St. John's out of that top spot at some point? Because they were pretty unanimous number 1 in our voting system.
Yeah, I mean, St. John's are a very talented team, so it's going to be hard to push them out. But I will have to say one team that I think could give them a push is Paul VI. I mean, they have the potential to be a very good offensive team with Soroy's and Peltier and company. But, I mean, they have talent on the mound as well. Tyler Russ, Purdue, and just the rest of the staff. I mean, as long as they have some consistent pitching throughout the year, I could see them just giving them a little push out the top spot for sure.
No, I think Paul VI is definitely the easy answer and probably the right answer as to who could push St. John's. A, they're in the WCAC with them. We'll get to see that matchup at least twice during the season, if not more times in the WCAC playoffs. B, I think for me, the thing with Paul VI is you mentioned some of those arms, and there's a bunch of them, Rousey, Purdue, a handful of others that you talked about. I think the big thing for me is Paul VI has just got to figure out who that one guy is who can go take over a game. And if they get that guy, that's the kind of guy they can put up against Arma from St. John's and turn that game into A, a really fun one, but then B, one that they can win. So I definitely think that's the case there. So that is actually the teams in our top 2 spots. Somehow we actually ended up with 5 private schools there in the top. So let's spin this question in the public school direction. Right now, highest ranked public school we have is Freedom South Riding out of VHSL Class 6. Anyone in the public school side you think could push past Freedom by the end of the year?
I mean, there's this team that I saw here recently, the Cosby Titans. I feel like I'm a little higher on them right now. Their mound depth is kind of deep right now with Jack Wade, Michael Williams, Giovanni Briggs right off making commit, and then have a freshman, Blake LaMattina, that was really impressive on the mound earlier this week. So, I mean, they have the arm talent to definitely hold off some offenses as well. But, I mean, offensively, they have some athleticism at the top. Aiden Schnars, Jacob Moore, they can do some things with those guys. Bad 1-2. So, as long as they provide some run support for those arms, I could definitely see them making a jump later on in the Power 25 rankings this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Could see some push there. Freedom's going to have a bit of a dogfight, especially in the region. They've got Colgan, Patriot, Gainesville, a young Battlefield team that we think very highly of the youth on. Colonial Forge, it's a really deep region in Class 6 Region B, so anything can happen there. And really in Class 6, anything can happen anywhere this year. So we've already been out and somehow managed to, despite Mother Nature's best intentions, seeding 24 teams as a staff. Of the teams that we've already seen, Jordan, some of whom are ranked, is there one that you are higher on now than you were when we did these rankings? Because we all voted on it. Our entire staff put votes and ranked everyone, and that's how we did this for our preseason rankings. We did this a couple of weeks ago. So we've since started seeing teams. So is there a team you're higher on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I got out to see Glen Allen earlier. And I mean, they have a true ace in Daniel Neighbor. And also they have some other guys like Ian Baldwin. They have a young freshman, Arm Steele Smith, that's young on the mound, but I think he can have a chance to pretty good. But along with some offensive firepower, I mean, they have Jackson Toole, Colin Whitby, Ben Pulliam. So those are some guys where you can get some good pitching on the mound, some offense there. I think they could sneak up on you a little bit too.
Yeah, and I think the one that sticks out to me as being interesting is one I actually got to see last weekend at the first pitch scrimmage, and that's McLean. They've got a volume of arms, and that was a thing that we were looking to see this year for them is where were the arms. And hopefully they will be a little bit better this year. And if any one of them can emerge, again, like I mentioned with Paul VI, as a true ace for them and just take over games, then I could see McLean being a potential power in Class 6. So now, obviously, we rank 25 teams. And that's always our preseason rankings. And every year we are right about some and we are wrong about plenty. What is a team that's currently outside of our Power 25? Bloody pollen. Outside of our Power 25 that you think could end up the season in the top 15. So this happens every year. Someone starts way off the rankings. They get hot in the middle of the season and they're playing in state championship weekend. So what team do you think that could be?
Well, we kind of mentioned them quickly, but that young Battlefield team, man. I mean, they have some young talent there. With they have a nice sophomore class there. Got some freshmen, and Colangelos, Tegan Leach, Maurice Toledo, Luke Raffalo. I mean, that offense could cause some real problems for opposing pitchers. I mean, they have an arm in Sam Michelle that could be a true ace for them this spring, along with Leach getting some important innings on the mound. But I mean, youth could give them a problem early, but I mean, I could easily see them later on as they get adjusted and accustomed to the other teams. They can be a real problem for other teams heading to the playoffs.
No, I think absolutely that is a great choice there. I'll stay in that same district. One that we had also just outside the rankings is Gainesville. We've seen Ryan Petro, 2025 lefty. He was pretty good in scrimmage action against Paul VI. We've already liked Caden Merritt, obviously the two-way outfielder, right-handed pitcher, VMI commit. He could be a guy there, and you could see Gainesville kind of sneaky in. And then obviously we left the defending state champs, Madison, out. Coach Jorman Pudge always finds a way to put a team together, even when we're having trouble seeing it right now on paper. They'll be in there at the mix. I could see them doing it. And then South Lakes, don't sleep on that. They've got a pair of high-end arms there, Rocky Green and Owen Wojciechowski, the JMU commit, that are the kind of guys who could pitch them into that mix as well. Any other teams that you think would be potentially in that mix? Anyone's outside of Northern Virginia, I guess?
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of tough because it's a very deep. So I mean, I think those teams that you picked are pretty close to where I would go to as well as sneaking in there later on in the year.
Yeah, and I'll do it since Burton's not here. I'll do it for him. You can't ever count out Hanover, 3-time defending champ. They'll figure out a way to be there at the end and in the mix. So I could see them in there. So if you want to check out our Power 25, the entire original rankings are up. They've been releasing one at a time. We have breakdowns on each of the individual teams and player standouts over the last 2 weeks. And then starting tomorrow, and then basically every week after this, we'll have an updated Power 25 on Monday mornings. We'll talk about it at first on this episode the night before. The other thing that we want to do while we're looking ahead to the year here is talk about the preseason All-State team. We have released those teams. We did a first team, second team, third team, honorable mention, and underclass team. All of those ran on the website this week, so make sure you're checking those out. Story to watch for tomorrow, actually, is going to be we kind of worked together, and then Burton did the bulk of the work on the content inside it, of coming together with a preseason player of the year watch list. That'll be released tomorrow. 20 players that we think could end up being in the mix for player of the year. So instead of sitting here and talking about who's actually on these preseason all-state teams, Jordan, who's a player that you think could end up being the PBR, or pardon me, Prep Baseball Virginia DC Player of the Year when we make that announcement in June? Obviously, last year, for those of you who've forgotten, some kid named Eldridge won it.
Yeah, I mean, one of my personal two-way players in the state, Tanner Shadle from Cape Henry. I mean, he had a spectacular year last year, and I mean, I just don't see him slowing down anytime soon and heading to his senior year. He's going to be a big part of the middle of the lineup for Cape Henry, as well as on. He's such a big role of everything that they do offensively, defensively on the mound. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him having a huge year this year and becoming a player of the year for us.
Yeah, no, I think Shadle's definitely a good pick for that. I know one that I like. He's going to put up crazy numbers at Patrick County. Tucker Swales, the 2024 down there for them. Primarily an arm, but he's a two-way for Patrick County this year. I mean, he put up monster numbers last year as a junior. Could see that. How about someone, because we both named guys who were on the first team there. Is there someone off of the first team who you think could end up sneaking into that conversation?
I think one guy that I think he's just a super dynamic player, and that's Luke Harlow from Walsingham Academy. I mean, he's dynamic. He has bat-to-ball skills with hitting for power. I mean, he hit quite a few home runs last year for Walsingham, and I expect him to do the same this year. He's an elite runner. He can turn a single into a double just by getting on base with a walk, and next thing you know, he's on second because he steals the bag immediately. He plays a good center field for them, and he just impacts the game on both sides of the ball. So he's a guy that I could definitely see at the end of the year making a little run at it as well.
Absolutely outstanding. There's quite a few who I could see it. I think for me, the biggest thing is it's going to probably be a two-way guy when it's all said and done, just because being able, it's not often that we have a hitter put up an absurdly offensive enough season to be able to stand out above a two-way guy. Even last year, Bryce Eldridge at Madison had two-way stats. Yeah, he's a bat first. That's what the Giants drafted him to be primarily, but he did pitch as well for them and threw some significant innings in significant spots. Most of the time we've been talking about our players of the year that end up being two-way guys. I think like the one I can really think of where it was just a bat only was Wes Clark out of Liberty Christian in 2018, and he legitimately might have hit like 18 home runs in 55 official at-bats his senior year, which was just a stupid number. How about this? So who's a guy that isn't on either of the first two teams that you think could see being on the first team or potentially in the mix for player of the year at the end of the year, or a guy poised for a monster breakout, essentially?
That's tough.
See, this was this was a brainchild here. I'm throwing questions out there right now at him, and we didn't prep for this time. We wanted to live shoot from the hip a little bit here. It is tough to shoot that live because there's a lot of guys who it could be for sure. Got any easy thoughts? Any obvious ones, or things that jump out at you?
I think I'm gonna go with Elijah Costin from Benedictine. I mean, talented both ways, supreme athletic guy, defends well in center, high end runner, and got some power in the bat as well. And then on the mound, I'm sure he'll get a decent amount of innings from Benedictine this year. So he's another guy that's toolsy and can impact the game in both ways. So I think that'll be my pick.
I think that's a decent pick right there. I know a sneaky one for me would be a guy who I'm actually going to probably see in some capacity tomorrow, Keller Hamilton from Highland School. Impact late inning arm for them, bat, key piece at the middle of their lineup. Could end up seeing him sneak up that board and jump up it for them as the season goes on. All right, so again, check the PAS teams. Those are out there. Keep an eye out for that story on the preseason player of the year watch list that will be out there. Let's go ahead and talk about player standouts. We're going to didn't see much action this week. This will be a much larger segment as the season goes on. So let's go ahead and talk about one player we each saw this week and what we saw in them. And I'll just go ahead and roll first here real quickly. I was only able to get out to one scrimmage, and weather, Northern Virginia, for those of you who weren't up here, was a mess all week. Got out Friday, saw Patriot and John Champ. Always good to check in with Patriot center fielder 2025. East Carolina commit Grady Lenahan. I thought Grady had 3 pretty solid at bats. His first at bat, stayed inside and absolutely hammered a line drive single to left. Pretty quickly stole second base. The speed's there. Couple in his next at bat, it was like the pitch before he put the ball in play. He ended up dumping a hit in the right center field. But one thing we've seen with Grady is he's been a lot of up the middle, working gap to gap. And I know that personally for me, one of the things I've wanted to see is when does he start turning and dropping ahead on the ball? He had a foul ball. I know it's a foul ball where he just absolutely turned on it and let one fly. And I have not seen him swing like that before. And it was actually impressive with how high and far he hit that ball. Again, it's foul, but just having that club in his bag that he's learned the ability to turn on the ball, I think is a big step for him. And right at the very end, and I did not have a radar gun because of a battery snafu, which has now been solved. I did get a chance to take a quick peek at 2027 right-handed pitcher Daniel Kim from John Champ. Really liked what he saw, worked a clean inning, got swing and misses with his fastball, showed a breaking ball with some pretty good snap on it. Landed it once, was mostly a little bit scattered with the breaking ball, but I really, really liked what we saw with him. Saw him a couple times during the fall as well. And he was low 80s then. It'd be interesting to see. I want to get back out and see him a second time, but it was a good showing for a first varsity outing there for a freshman. Who do you want to talk about here, Jordan?
Yeah, I want to talk about, I kind of mentioned him earlier, Daniel Neighbor. I got to Glen Island. And even though it was a very short outing for him in the scrimmage, just one inning of work, it was impressive to me. I mean, when Neighbor throws, it just looks so effortless. I was talking to Burden earlier in the week. I was talking about him just when he's throwing, just like he's throwing a short box, just easy, effortless. He's putting the ball wherever he wants to, just easily painting the corners at 88 to 91. Then he just flipped the curveball in the zone at ease whenever he wanted. And then he showed the changeup once, which I think is one of his better pitches. But he only showed it once. But I mean, I expect him to use it a lot this spring. And I mean, it was just a good early look at him. But I'm definitely excited to get out to see him a second time in a longer outing this spring.
Man, he's a fun arm to watch. I might even have to make the trip down to Glen Allen for that, just to see it. That, or fingers crossed they make it deep into the state tournament, which I'm pretty sure is back up here again. So, any other notes? Anything else?
I'll speak about Douglas Freeman. Cayman Good looked very, very good in his 3 innings of work in the scrimmage. Was up to 94. Showed feel for the breaking ball. Showed a new changeup that looked like it was going to work pretty well for him. He's still developing feel for it, but I mean, it was an impressive outing that I got to watch and see. So I'm excited to see how he's grow throughout the spring as well.
Yep. This is, I know at least for me, my favorite time of the calendar for us here at Prep Baseball is the next 3 months during the high school season, getting out, seeing games, seeing the players that we've seen, what growth they've made over the off season. And then also every once in a while you find someone that's off the beaten path and hasn't been seen. And sometimes that's the best part. So I know that's where we're at. Where are you thinking you're headed this week? Weather looks decent, knock on wood.
Later in the week, it looks pretty good. Not quite sure yet early in the week, but I know later on in the week I will go see Powhatan in Hanover. And then planning on getting over to see Cosby and James River. And then probably on Friday head to Benedictine, see Harlow and Coston match up against each other. So that'll be a good one to go to as well.
Nice. I'm going to try and fight the 50-mile-an-hour winds up here tomorrow afternoon. It's a 4 o'clock start. We're having a big interstate rivalry matchup between Georgetown Prep from Maryland and Highland School right around the corner from where I live. So I'm going to go check that one out. Highland won their opener on Friday with a comeback against Potomac School. So it'll be good to go out and see them, get a good look at them. Plus, our cousins up in Maryland, Jamie Nail, has told me that Prep is supposed to be rolling out their arms. So it should be a pretty good showing from a talent standpoint. Tuesday, there's a slew of games up here. Just about everyone gets going. I think I'm leaning right now South Lakes Marshall, but we will see. And then Friday, I've had this one circled on the calendar for about 3 months. Battlefield going up to Tuscarora to possibly see some of those freshman hitters we've talked so much about and maybe get an early look at Cowan or Pesky. So should be a good time. So I think that's about it for this episode. I do want to add real quickly for those of you, we are actually going to be back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning this week. We are debuting updated class rankings, the class of 2027, 2026, and 2025 rankings we have updated. I will not make the joke that I want to make, Jordan. You know what it is. So we will have those rankings updates coming this week on the website. They're minor updates when we will have a short 5 to 8 minute high and tight episode looking into those rankings shortly before they release on the website. So look for those updates this week. And then obviously follow Jordan on social. Jordan, what's your Twitter handle for everybody?
J Jones PBR VADC, but I probably need to change the R to PB now. But yeah, I'll be on there all week, all year.
When you change it, I'll change mine. PBR VADC _ Nolan for me. Burton is at K's all day 19. One thing of note, please make sure when you guys are looking at Twitter handles or X handles that the one that you're looking at is actually the accurate Prep Baseball VA account and not a knockoff, because that was the thing that happened on Friday. So just keep an eye on that. We'll be back with you guys on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Also, we have posted all of our summer events. They are all available for registration. The initial invites have gone out for the top prospect games. We have about 55 people already registered for the summer state games. There is a limit on how many people get into that. So hustle up, please. Request your invite if you have not done so already. You do need to go to one of our events this summer before you get the opportunity to go to Lake Point to play in the future games. So please make sure you're hustling on that. And with all that said, that's a wrap on this episode. We'll be back next Sunday evening, 6 or 7 o'clock. Watch social media earlier in the day for an announcement. And we'll see you guys out there.